means something such as a movie, television program, or piece of music that one enjoys despite feeling that it is not generally held in high regard. And that is exactly how I feel about Frog Detective. And no, this actually isn't a joke. You guys should definitely play Frog Detective. It was one of my favorite games that I played in 2023. And no, this is not just some random bit. This is not a joke. You guys should definitely pick up Frog Detective. That's all I'm going to say about that. Sorry about that. Now that we got that out of the way. For the past few weeks, I've been on vacation from work, and I really needed a game to play so I could review on this channel because I haven't put out a review in probably the last 2 months. I ended up skipping over Final Fantasy VII because I just wasn't in the mood to play it. I thought about The Last of Us remake, but it's really not piquing my interest at the moment. Looked at the Ghost of Tsushima and probably should finish my playthrough that I only put 10 hours in, but I really enjoyed. But again, something that I really didn't want to play. Until that moment, I looked at my Switch games and I blew off the dust to one of the games I bought on Prime Day that was just an impulse decision to buy. But I did it anyways and said, I need to give this game a chance. That game is Dragon Quest Treasures. I've been seeing the general take about this game, and it's definitely not as great as how everyone feels about the main series. So I wanted to dive in to what the cause of that was, and what better way to determine that than someone who's never touched a Dragon Quest game in their life. So this is my review on Dragon Quest Treasures. Yo guys, what's going on? It's your boy YouLoveNicktana, back again with another video. Do me a favor, tell someone you love them because you never know what somebody is going through. And today we're going to be talking about Dragon Quest Treasures. If you like video game critiques, me reviewing video games, and talk about everything and all gaming, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button so you guys never miss a video, and then make sure you guys like, comment, all that stuff, share with a friend. That's the best way to help support. Other than that, let's get into Dragon Quest Treasures, and what better way to do it than talking about what Dragon Quest Treasures is even about. So, what is Dragon Quest Treasures about? Dragon Quest Treasures is about two kids named Eric and Mia who live on a Viking ship who dream and want to be treasure hunters one day. Well, good news for them, today's the day. While the Vikings start to party it up on the boat, slamming White Claws, eating all the food and jamming out. Oh wait, that was just my New Year's Eve. But, nah, let's take that out. Take that out, Nick. You're stupid. You're stupid. Eric and Mia end up sneaking out when they get to the dock. They are introduced to two mysterious animals that are in a cage, a glowing purple cat with wings named Persuela, and a green glowing pig also with wings, as you can see the pattern here, called Porcus. After freeing them, you go to an island, pull out two mysterious daggers that were stuck in the rocks and were now blessed with the powers to hunt down treasure, while also be able to hear Persuela and Porcus, who will now help guide them on their journey of going to Draconia to go hunt for the 7 fabled dragon stones, which requires exploring the world, beating very similar boss fights, exploring dungeons, and plenty more. Upon doing that, you land at your base. This is where you're going to be storing all your treasure that you find on your trips, from brickbats to iconic big money treasures that you find in the 5 areas of Draconia. Helping you on these treasure hunt journeys, you have companions on your trip. You're blessed with the monsters that you scout that are found within the world to help you find treasure, fight wild monsters, take down other rival games that are trying to take your treasures, even open up a bakery. While progressing through the game, you'll stumble upon big rival gangs that will try and take your treasure, and even the main boss who is on the hunt for the 7 dragon treasures as well. Personally, the story to me was a little lackluster. For Dragon Quest games that are known for its characters and great storytelling, this game just falls a little short. There were times I could care less around Eric and Mia and just wanted less talky, more treasure. It's not your typical Dragon Quest game though. Instead of the typical turn-based RPG elements, it usually provides itself on it. It went more of an action RPG style with treasure, which honestly, I commend them for trying. On average, Dragon Quest Treasures is a 21-hour game, about 30 hours to do the mains and the side missions, and then about to complete everything in the game, it takes you about 40 hours. I like the way they introduced us into the game by showing us how to hunt treasures in the initial way of getting us here, but then after that, everything just felt like a slippery slope. Right off the rip, I want to say storytelling is not a strong positive for this game. Very little does anything make sense, or what is going on even make you feel empathy or a care to anything you have a goal for. The energy of doing quests and side quests, they just weren't there for me, and eventually at the end, everything just felt rushed and didn't make sense for a story to end, or don't know the reasoning of adding the ending the way they did. And also with that, I'm obviously using a rough choice of words because I don't want to spoil anything for you. Just know that the ending was very confusing to me and just really didn't make sense at the end of the day. So now that we got what the game is about out of the way, I want to go into deeper about all the features in this game and the positive of negatives, starting off with talking about the scouting of monsters. One of the things that drew me into Dragon Quest games was the amount of weird and eye-candy monsters that there are in the lore. Treasures lets you scout from a bunch of different monsters like Bat with a creepy smile, a ham sandwich, this creepy shadow, a creepy shadow but in teal, a big stone colossal ogre, and plenty more. The only problem I have with that in Dragon Quest Treasures is the amount of reskins in this game is absolutely unacceptable, and it drives me crazy. Seeing the same monster over and over again with a different element, it was a very lazy attempt with a treasure aspect of the game. For how many monsters you guys have in the series, you guys could have did something more special, I felt. In order to get these monsters on your team though, you have to scout them. Scouting happens when a monster you defeat wants to join your team, and you have to get the right materials to add them to your team. Each monsters have levels which lets them unlock certain moves and have certain stats. Each monster also are ranked by tiers depending on which traits, moves, and abilities they have. The ratings and rarities for these monsters consist of rainbow, gold, silver, and bronze. Rainbow rated monsters are the most difficult to catch, while bronze monsters would be the easiest, which obviously makes sense. You need to have a selection of items for them to recruit them. This is why collecting and gathering everything you find is very essential. This system kept me behind though, because I was always worrying about getting high tier ranked monsters to see how much it would really matter, and it really didn't when it came to combat. I can't really tell you how much of a difference it really made in combat wise, because every monster felt the same depending on what levels you had. I even felt like there was times I was under leveled and I was still able to fight to a degree of some monsters due to the fact that if there was only one of them I was fighting, or if I used the specialties that each monster have. The ultimates in this game was overpowered as hell. Ultimates came when you participate in combat enough times and you are rewarded with a special. All you do is click a button and boom, you're wiping out most of the regular monsters and massive chunks of boss fights. Honestly, to me, after playing the game a little bit more and more, I don't know if these monsters were more here just for the aspect of being able to hunt for treasure, which I'll get into when I talk about the treasure aspect of this review, but it kind of seems like they just were around to have certain like fortune abilities and stuff amongst that nature, because combat wise I really didn't see the point of having really high ranked ones. But that's just personally, if I couldn't see that within 26 hours, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a fault on its own. Alright, so we dusted off our trophy cases, rallied up some monsters, and now it's time to get that loot and to be one of the top pirates, unlike Luffy from One Piece. In order to head out, we have to jump on the railway at least to 5 different islands that also have 3 to 4 general areas within that island. You could go to Paternoggin, the mainland, the Windswept Moors, the Chile areas and Hinterquarters, and Cinderback Ridge. These areas all have their own unique personalities and monsters, so you never get bored of exploring. It takes the Pokemon Legends approach when you, depending on which part of the island you go to, the level and scaling of monsters can change, so catch yourself slipping if you stumble upon an area that you are not ready to go to that place. Within each area, as well as you will find an insane amount of materials that can be used to scout monsters, create meal recipes, pellets, and plenty more. And I'll get into more of that stuff in a little bit. There are just plenty of tactics and no wrong ways to hunt for treasure in this game, though what I found the most useful was matching up your party with the right treasure forecast to get the best opportunity to hunt for loot. So you're probably asking, what is treasure forecast? And I'm glad you asked, but now that you asked, I need you guys to bear with me, and I'm gonna try explain this the best I can because it's a little confusing. Each monster has its own treasure symbol. The more monsters that you have that match the treasure forecast that randomly changes throughout the game and time you spend will raise your golden ratio. Your golden ratio is what makes it easier for you to find rare treasures that are on the island at the time that your monsters can dig up. While using your ability to find treasure, your daggers spin and go absolutely off the rails. These little boxes will pop up from each of your monsters and your party to show where the treasure is. This part of the game cracks me up. I mean, look at some of these. The attention to detail to do this depending on the outlook of each monster was clever, and I could tip my hat off to them for that, even though if it is irritating for some of them and hard to find treasures. But as I mentioned earlier, some treasure can be found that's less valuable, called bric-a-brac, which is still very nice to find for how easier they are located. Each of your monsters have different treasure carrying capacity, so based on how long you want to hunt for, you might want to bring monsters that can hunt for a very long time. While you've been hunting for a long time, you have the vulnerability to get attacked by other pirate gangs. These gangs will ambush you and have a duel to take any treasure you spent time hunting for, which honestly, the pirate gangs, that when they do hunt you down, it's not like it's the end of the world. They like added it into the game thinking like, oh, this would be some crazy little feature, like if we throw in a pirate gang that actually will hunt you down and try to take your treasure. To an extent, that sounds very cool, but like they really aren't difficult at all. I mean, a lot of the times if they would jump you, you could just, again, like I said, use your ultimate. It is honestly just super powerful and just wipe them out in general. I've had my treasure taken maybe like once or twice, but you have the chance to go back and fight them on their turf to go get their treasure. So I do like the little rivalry when it comes to that. There are about maybe like 5 or 6 different pirate gangs, all with different names, and I thought it was kind of cool to do, but it's not like it's like the end of the world, like, oh no, we gotta hide and run away from these pirates. It's really not that big of a deal. So now that you've been through the islands and you finally got all your treasure to bring back to your island, so you take the train back, and this is where the game shines. And I'm not just talking about the treasure you got. You'll start getting all your treasures looked at, and depending on what you find is how much value you get from your treasures. The massive amount of G's you could get is what makes you greedier and greedier with hunting treasure that you could show off in your showroom. One of my favorite parts was going and hunting treasure, and you could find a little bit of this and find a little bit of that. Some of the treasures I found were about like 10 million G's. I don't really know what the currency is in this game, but finding it and seeing like the amount of different treasures that this game had was very freaking cool. You had some monsters that they turned into trophies, like you had the slime gem that they gave you right away. They have some trophies that they give you that kind of relate to what Dragon Quest Treasures is, with the railway trophies. Some of the different side characters in the game, if they have like a certain uniqueness to them, you might get a trophy for that by completing side quests. Monsters and stuff that's in previous Dragon Quest games or might have some sort of lore similarity to what Square Enix does or what Dragon Quest does, and I really thought that was cool, and it felt like more of like a fan service, like fan game. Like if you really enjoy Dragon Quest and you really want to experience all the different types of treasures that you can collect, I think this could be like a very big highlight for you. Even though I've never played a Dragon Quest game in my life, collecting the treasures and seeing the vast amount of things that you can see and learning like, oh, this is from Dragon Quest 7, or this was from Dragon Quest 10, or this was from this is obviously a slime, this is obviously this part of the game. It's very cool to see, and also showing it off in your showroom when you unlock all your spots and show them off to everybody that may come to your island and check out. I really loved, and this is like mainly why I spent so much time playing the game, was just hunting treasure. And if that was the point that they wanted to make, is they wanted you to hunt treasure and explore and find the different things on the islands, then they did their job. And I think that that was the best part of it. But now that we got those two things out of the way, let's go to topic number 3 to see if this is a game that truly keeps this train rolling about the good and the bad things about it. We're going to be talking about the side quests that take a part in this game. This was the topic I didn't really want to talk about the most, and it has to do with the side quests. Just like a lot of games out there, you have main missions and side missions, and Dragon Quest Treasures does the exact same thing. You'll find a lot of different characters within the story that you could do individual requests and missions to earn yourself more of a story and more trophy that could get you closer to your top ranks, your top rank goals. The only problem, these missions are just so bad and very forgettable. Don't get me wrong, doing side quests in video games are very needed a lot of the time to level up faster, get an exclusive story, maybe some armor you wanted, or some sort of reward. For some of those things in treasures, the things you gotta do and the rewards just aren't that worth doing so. One of the side missions in this game is you have this little like ham sandwich dude and you have a shadow. And I'm pretty sure these are like some of the bad guys in the game. I can't even tell if they're like a neutral party, if they're my friends or they're not my friends, but they just do stuff like BS to kind of just like make things difficult on everybody else. So one of the side missions was, we're gonna put balloons all over the area and nobody's gonna stop us. And if you think that I'm gonna go around and pop 50 to 100 balloons, I'm not exploring to pop 50 or 100 balloons. I'm good, I'm okay. It's not really that much worth it to me. The only ones I really did was with the captain, and it was more of just like a tutorial based thing because it's very easy. It's like scout 5 monsters. Make sure you do this combat move, unleash the dragon. Make sure you find this many materials in the world. A lot of stuff that like you would already do in the game that just kind of adds up to that. Dragon Quest Treasures just had really forgettable side characters to me that I really could care less about. I can't even tell you off the top of my head really any ones I really cared about. They just were there and they just felt like they were there to serve little to no purpose or to add a little bit to the story, which again, I just, oh well, like what is the big deal? Like it's Dragon Quest Treasures to me was just hunting for the treasure. Like everything in between that, I just didn't care for. Nothing like really stuck out to me. Also, the side missions I really cared for were the railway ones. The only reason I did those for the obvious reason is because I wanted to be able to fast travel from area to area to area so I could be able to get more materials, level up a lot faster, and send my team out for missions whenever I'm going and doing actually main missions and I need some of my other monsters to fulfill, going to grab materials and go on little side things while I don't feel like doing it. Getting into our fourth thing, we're going to talk about unleashing the dragon and the combat of Dragon Quest Treasures. I've been yapping about this game for a really long time and didn't get into the combat yet. And look, that's honestly my bad. I just trying to take a little bit more TLCs with this essay and reviews while making sure I cover everything to get you ready to either run out and give Nintendo your money or never touch this game ever again. Combat is an important feature when it comes to RPGs. It's what makes your grind your levels to get the stats you need to take down whatever is in your path. It's what makes you look up builds and get an idea of how you want each of your members of your team to play a role. Treasures could do that, but wasn't a fan of it in this game, and I'm gonna explain why. The whole point of the combat situation that Treasures wants you to experience is using your monsters to take down other monsters and you being a support piece. I think this might be one of the first action RPGs where I felt like I had to pay attention to everything going on with my team for MP, health, and weaknesses, or you will have to pay the consequences. A lot of times during combat, if you don't pay attention to what's going on with your monsters, they could get hit for really big chunks of damage, and a lot of times they can't perform the moves that they need to, that they have the really high rankings for, due to the fact that they don't have the MP. So your goal is, while you're damaging enemies for most of the time, you'll have your monsters fighting, but you have to pay attention to those, and you have like healing stuff. So you have like healing pellets, you have MP pellets, you have a lot of different pellets that do slashing damage, fire damage, ice damage, light damage, dark damage, ground damage, lightning damage, stun damage, sleep, scout. Like there are like about 60-70 different pellets in this game, and to the point to where like I got tired of making them or finding them. I only went with like a few different damage ones. I really didn't care so much about the elemental ones, but now I'm sitting here thinking, and I kind of understand why there are both, depending on like if you're going up with monsters that have very high defenses, you obviously want to use the elemental spell. If you're going up with ones that have really high elemental resistance, you want to use like the slashing and the damage one, and then you obviously want to hit for weaknesses to take down monsters a lot faster. So getting it back into like paying attention, I know it's okay, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing to get good, but the game doesn't introduce you to any of this stuff when fighting. It doesn't give you a guideline of what monsters do better against others, which pellets are used to do more damage. All you're doing is just going in blind Velma style. I couldn't tell what monsters I wanted to use or what team builds were effective. I just picked what monsters I thought had the best stats and rankings and went my way. This game has so many reskins with the monsters, I quite really didn't understand what monsters were used for what. I mean, I guess like if you use like mental, like you use your brain a little bit, like you use your head, you can kind of understand like the ice monsters are probably weak to fire. So that's kind of stuff you learn just from playing Pokemon or basic combat games like that. But when it comes to Dragon Quest Treasures, I wish they would give you a guide and somehow show you like how you can figure out what's super strong against something or what isn't, and vice versa. I mean, you could look at that by the big stats they have, but they have like a bunch of different styles and a bunch of different typings. It's kind of hard to figure out like what works against what, and especially if you never gone up against that monster before, or if you haven't seen that monster before, you're basically going in blind, and the only way to find out is if you scout that monster beforehand to figure out what it's weak against and what you could actually use to damage it a lot of the time. So combat was, for me, I enjoyed combat. There were times I would initiate in combat just for the fact too, like you didn't really have to do anything, and that's one of the things I do like about these Dragon Quest games. I don't want to sit there and have to like be fully fully invested in a fight all the time. You pay attention a little bit, you make sure that your monster's MP isn't low, their health isn't low, and you kind of just sit back and let them do the work. It's a good way to let monsters level up, grow levels, and for you to grow levels throughout the game too. All right, man, let's go ahead and let's sum up Dragon Quest Treasures. I've been talking about this game for a decent amount of time, and I want to give you the final verdict about how I feel about this game. Dragon Quest Treasures to me was a very fun game. I put in a lot of hours to it, a lot of carefree time, and just sat back on the couch and just really just played and didn't really have an objective to really complete the main missions in a rush or to put down the game and hurry up and beat so I could play something else. It was a game I took a lot of time into exploring, finding different treasures, scouting different monsters, and really starting to learn and understand the game. This is the first time I've sat there with a game and said that I can enjoy the game, but I can clearly understand the reason of why somebody would not like this game or why some people just didn't end up picking it up or not wanting to play it. The game, just to me, I had generally just a lot of questions to, and really the answers were never answered. Maybe you guys can help me out in the comments below, could understand it a little bit more, but to me, I really couldn't understand a lot of stuff that went on with this game. Dragon Quest Treasures to me was a 7 out of 10. Is it perfect? No. Is it great? Nah. But it's okay, and it really got me into the Dragon Quest series as of now, because as of right now, I am playing Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, and that's a game I actually really like right now, and that I've also put in about 26 to 30 hours to, and it's gonna get me on track to play of like Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3, which is the goal after these 3 games. So I mean, it did its job of doing that. I do also think for the visuals of this game, the visuals to me just, it felt like more of like a gacha game for some reason. The graphics to me, and I've said this for Switch games for a decent amount of time, the Switch just, I feel like is not powerful enough to do what it wanted to do with this game graphic wise. There's a little bit of laggy moments. I felt like things stuttered a lot, but also the game kind of felt like it would be like a mobile gacha game. Like just the way that it felt like you explored certain worlds or like you went to certain locations and did certain goals and how the treasure rank looked on the screen. It felt like you were playing like a mobile game to me. And I don't really know how I feel about that. I mean, that's just personally how I felt when I played the game. But at the end of the day, man, I picked up Dragon Quest Treasures and it's been completed. I hope you guys like this review. If there's anything that I missed, please put down in the comments down below. I will be listening to a lot of feedback and things about the game that I could go ahead and do better. Other than that, be safe, tell us you love them, and I'll catch you guys next review. We're out.